Hello and welcome to part 2 of my van conversion build. This morning I gave the cab of the van a good vacuum clean and a bit of a wipe down, got some mucky marks out of it. That was all looking a bit tatty and it's now much better. I also took the van to get 2 new tyres on the rear. They were both pretty much down to the limit, and one of them had a little bit of a flat spot on it as well that the tyre shop told me was due to a bad puncture repair by the previous owner. Anyway, those tyres have gone, 2 new ones put on, only budget tyres unfortunately. My whole build is going to be quite budget because having bought the van I've got no money left, but at least I do have now 4 really good tyres on it. This afternoon my plan is to start trying to take out the existing ply lining. It looks like it's mostly just secured in with some crosshead screws, so I've got my just trusty power screwdriver here, and I will just go around taking them all out, and then I can see what the state of the van floor and sides is. I'll either keep this ply lining and reuse it, but it has got some holes punched in it for the tie down fixing, so it may not be perfect. Either way I can still use it as a template for a new floor in the future, so I will definitely keep it. Anyway, let's get started. I'd like to disconnect that from that. There we go. Right, that is stuck rather more firmly than the other side was. However, let's just pop it outside. I don't really know quite what I was expecting, but a second layer of lining certainly wasn't it. And there is this second layer here held in with plastic popper studs, and I think that again could come in quite handy in terms of holding insulation in place, so I will retain that once I've worked out how to take the thing off. It turns out that these little popper things are quite an intelligent design that you can get out. When they're in the lining, flush like that, as you can see, it's squished the 2 bits of popper aside, and that stops the popper coming out and therefore holds the lining in. But if you just get your fingernails under there and pull that middle bit out, which I'm not doing a very good job of here, hold on, there we go. Once that's out, let the camera get focus again, and that can then squish together and the whole thing will come out, and then you can take the lining out. And of course the converse is true, put it all back together again like that. Brilliant. Having had a good look at this panel and had a little peer down behind it, I can see that the side of the van is just immaculate under there. There's nothing else, it's just metal side of van, so I'm inclined not to take the rest of these poppers off, but just to leave this where it is until the time comes to insulate the van. I haven't bought or ordered the insulation yet, I'm still pondering what to use, but certainly on the side here, if there's going to be a panel, you've got a good finger's depth, that's how I measure it, a good finger's depth for insulation. And so I might use some rolls of loft type insulation, but not the stuff that makes you itch, the one that's made of recycled sheep or something like that. And I could easily get a roll in there and stick it on, plastic vapor barrier, ply lining, Bob's your uncle. But I'm still working on that. For the moment though, I'm going to leave this insulation sheet, but I will now take the floor up. This panel is basically free, but because it's on this edging piece which is connected to the next panel, I'm also going to have to disconnect it from the edging piece. Oops. Oh, you bugger. Well, that's annoying. Those ones do not want to come out. That's very annoying. I seem to have two issues to deal with here. First of all, that screw will not come out, even trying to have a go at it with a manual screwdriver and pushing in as hard as I can. I suspect the screw may have been glued in as well as screwed in, because it really isn't coming, and all I'm doing is rounding off the cross threads, which is not good. And then the screw at the other end of that bit of edging as well doesn't want to come out either, so it looks like both ends were very firmly made never to come out, which is annoying because all the rest has come out quite easily. Also, this flat board, the first bit of ply floor I wanted to take out, I think there is a batten, a wooden batten, between the floor of the van and this bit of ply floor, and I think that's got glue on it as well. So I'm going to have to crowbar the whole thing out. So that's going to require a little bit more effort than I was anticipating. If I pull this up, this side's still screwed down, this one's free, but if I just pull it up a bit, you can probably just see the end of a batten there, and I can see glue on it. So to some degree these boards have been screwed and glued, and that is going to require some levering, which might end up destroying the board, which would be a great shame. I think what I'm going to do is continue to take out all the screws that are holding the ply down, and then I might have to go and buy an angle grinder or something similar to cut through the metal edging, because on the other side I've just tried and only one of the screws wanted to come out, and that edging is holding all these separate bits of ply together. So unless I want to lever it up and then take the whole floor out in one bit, which I really don't think I do, I'm going to need to cut those metal edges. So yes, this is turning into rather more of a palaver. I thought this was going to be a 20-minute job taking the boards out, but no. Well, I have now assembled quite the collection of woodwork and screws. Who knew it took so many screws to put a bit of ply in a van? The trouble is, of course, I've got nowhere else to put this, so it has to stay in the van, and that means if I actually go anywhere in the van, it's all going to slide around and scratch the paintwork, so I'm going to have to wrap it in a blanket or something. I've got nowhere else to store it. And the only bit left to do now is that door, and then, when I've gone and bought some tools, the floor. Okay, that side is done, so that is the lot bar the floor. The sun is starting to set, it's getting a little bit chilly, so I'm going to call it quits for the day and come back when I've got an angle grinder for the metal edging. Good morning, it's the next day. The sun is not shining, but a little light bulb did go off in my head overnight concerning angle grinding these metal bits off. It all sounded a little bit drastic, and in my head I have visions of me grinding away, my hand slipping, basically cutting the van in half, and the whole thing in a comedic moment splitting like that, like the Titanic just before it sank, and I'm a little reluctant for that to happen. However, I do have a more primitive tool, namely a hacksaw. So I'm just wondering whether if I can just hacksaw through the metal bits, because they're not that thick, and that might be a bit more of a delicate approach. Once I've managed to separate the different chunks of base plate by cutting through the metal, then I've just got to lever it all up from that glue on however many battens there are underneath there, which I can't actually see. So that is today's task. Woohoo! Okay. Right, I have cut this side and cut that side. So this front board is now technically free of the van, in as much as it's not connected to the rest of the floor, and as far as I can see there are no more screws holding it down. Those ones are just holding the edging on. So I ought to be able to just lift it up. However, when you do, there's the nasty cracking noise, and clearly it is glued along here. Now I can't see how many battens there are underneath, even if I peer down here, but there are, yeah, there's one here, and I imagine there's a couple more. But it's got to come up because I want to put insulation under the floor. All the van build guides I've seen say do put underfloor insulation down, so the existing ply has got to come up, even if it ends up breaking, unfortunately. And I don't know what it's going to do to the battens underneath, but here we go. Ooh. I don't know what glue they use, but I want to get hold of some of it because it's really good. There we go. Oh, hello. That's actually pulled one of the battens up, I can see. There we go. Right, we can get a proper look now at what's going on. So what we have is 2 battens this side, 3 battens that side. The batten looks like it was only glued down actually. And then yes, the ply has been screwed into that, so it's a stuck down batten with the ply floor being screwed into it. So hopefully that means the entire van floor might not have any screw holes in it, which would be great, because the fewer holes there are in the metal, obviously the better. Just got to get the rest out now. Look at the state of that. That has accumulated the detritus of 4 years under those floorboards, and that will all need vacuuming, wiping down, clearing up and sorting out before I can stick anything else down. Well, it can go there, can't it? Oh, that is a nasty sound. Well, that is far from perfect, but it's not a bad start. Bit more brushing, bit of vacuuming, bit of wiping down, and it looks like I've got a fairly good solid van base there. I think that'll do then for this vlog. Join me in the next one as I do something else which I haven't yet decided on. There's a teaser for you, but it'll be compelling, I assure you. Cheerio.